Hello everyone, welcome to our session on events. We will be discussing in detail about JavaScript events today, where we will go by the basics, then to the intermediate level, and at the end, we will show how you need to code your events or JavaScripts such that it, it is good enough for an enterprise application. Um, Initially, the codes that I'll show you probably will be more familiar with you because you pretty much see those codes everywhere in the internet. Whenever you do YouTube, you look into different portals, you look into those codes. But those codes are pretty much like for initial projects, college projects, individual projects. But the more you move ahead in the career, right, the more you get up into the ladder. Once from a junior developer to a senior developer to a tech lead, your coding style changes. You become more mindful about the maintainability of your code, and so that your code style and everything changes. As I said, in this video, the base assumption is you have some experience with programming, you know what is JavaScript, how the basic things in JavaScript is being done, but maybe you have some confusions related to some of the errors that you have faced while you do your work, right? So in this video, the video one, the focus will be mostly on the events. Now, this is not a session where I'll be explaining what is get document by ID or those basic things. Like, those are things I expect you all to go through some other videos and from YouTube and understand how you select, how the selector works in JavaScript and all that. In this video we'll go step by step, like how code matures from a basic code to a enterprise level, pro level code. Without any more delays, I will focus now your attention towards the screen that you're seeing. I have built a very simple application because it is not about the how complex or stylish this application is. It is about how your code is different. Now, this is a very simple code, a very simple uh, HTML page with basic CSS. And what you're going to do is, if you click this action button, the color of this div gonna change. Okay, as simple as that. So this is the very level one basic information. And to do so, I am pretty sure that the code I'm going to show you, you're very familiar with this. So this is basically a div, and they have like multiple divs here, and then you have this button, and this button has an on click. So we all know JavaScript provides, or HTML provides you this on click, on mouse over, all these on events. Now these are synthetic events that is provided by the browser as well as V8. So these are by default. You don't need to do anything to invoke these events. In a later video, I will explain you how to build custom events and to trigger those. But for now, we will be focusing mostly on what are the different ways you can trigger an event. Now look into this code, okay? In this code, where is my JavaScript? My JavaScript is right here at the end of the body. And if I click on this, it brings you to my JavaScript file. Now, forget about all these commented out codes. Now, let me see if I can increase the, okay, I guess, I guess this looks better, I guess. Not really sure. Okay, here we are back with the page properly zoomed, I believe. So this is your HTML, and in Visual Studio Code, I just like this. I just love this feature. You just control and click and make sure that you are pointing to the right JavaScript file. And as you can see, this is my on-click handler. I have a debugger here just to make sure that you're able to see that how the code is propagating. Now, let me refresh this, and I'm here. So let me click this action button. As I click the action button, you see the on-click handler has been triggered, and this is my debugger. Now, if I proceed by F10, pressing F10, you see that the target has been identified and the background color of the target style property set to red. So this is what we were expecting. So once you click this button, on click of this button, you change this color. This is the button click event. Now, I want to do something a bit different, okay? Because I guess I'm pretty sure that this is the code that you all understand. Like you see this code every day and night in all the applications that you're using, okay? So I'm gonna do something different now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this JavaScript file, okay, from the bottom of the body to the header, okay? Same JavaScript file, nothing changes, just move from bottom to the top. And let's see what happens, okay? It still works without any problem, right? Now I'm gonna do something different. What I'm gonna do is, so Control KD, so this works everything fine. I'm just moving it on the top. Oh, I have to format it, right? And as you know, Alt Shift F does the formatting for you in Visual Studio Code. Now this looks nice, prettier. I have some extensions installed. Now, one of the extensions that I always promote, I really like this. That's why I promote for free. That is this live server. If we go here into the install section, you can see that I have this live server installed. I would suggest everybody to use this live server because this makes JavaScript debugging way, way, way too easy. Now, there are other extensions that I have as well here, but important one, like the most useful one I find is the live server. You can also use some prettifier to make, you know, the JavaScript look beautiful. So you can install some of those as well. Like I'm using this prettier one. So you can use any of those to format your JavaScript based on your liking. Now, as I said, you know that people, we generally say, okay, what happens if I want to pass some parameter through this, okay? So let's say I want to pass something important. So what I want to pass here is I want to pass this div target, okay? The one that we're changing the color of. So let me take the div target here. And I'm passing here, okay? So let me pass. As you can see, it is complaining when I'm giving the additional quotes. So I'm just passing div target here, okay? And here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use something called a parameter, input parameter. So param, I'm using this param here. And the expectation is this param will take that value in and then we'll move it from there. Now, how I'm going to use it is I'm going to take here let target 2 goes to param. Okay. And then we'll see what is the value of this target 2 and how this parameter, what are the properties of this parameter and how we can use this, okay? Now here, again, nothing changes. And as you can see, right, I mean, I'm not making anything, I'm just going back to the same window. So the beauty of this live server is it always takes the updates without your any effort that you put in. So you see in param, I have the whole property of as the target. See? So when I set target.style.background color red, why not? Let me see what are the properties I can use of this text too. How to do that? Go to console, type dot c style. Does it have style? Yes, I have style here. Dot background. Yes, background color equals to red, blue. Okay. I'm sorry, I have this habit of clicking Control S as save. And if I press this, you see the color changed to blue. So why not I change my code a bit, and instead of using target, I use this, okay? And instead of, so target be there, okay? So you know how to comment and uncomment, right? Control slash, toggle your comment and uncomment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this Control C, Control V, and use this target 2 as here and making it blue, okay? So let's click, same code, same place, param, blue, and the color change to blue. Now, what is the difference between these two? This code and this code. So what I'm going to do is, what I did is I just stopped this one. So the moment I stop this, you see there is no search. So this on click handler, I'm passing the target. I'm passing the target that I want to modify, right? And it helps me in a JavaScript here, because here I don't need to do this at all, because I know the parameter has been passed through from the UI. So I don't need to search for the ID and do the DOM parsing or anything. It just finds it and changes it. This boosts the performance of your application a lot. If you're using this kind of code, this is the least you can do. If you're doing this kind of extensive searches or DOM parsing, because you know what, DOM is one single DOM, right? It's an inverted tree. Whenever you're doing get element by ID, get element by anything, you're basically parsing the DOM. Even though it is super fast, ultra fast, but it is still a search in the DOM. And if your DOM is a pretty large DOM, because you're having a large web application which has multiple tabs and you know whatnot, and if you have such a big structure, searching can take time. And when you're running so many of these searches, I mean, in parallel, or maybe in like in parallel, when I said, you know, JavaScript is single threaded, right? So you cannot really have it parallel, but it's like when you have so many of the searches going on for each of those things, it has a tendency to, you know, take more space and in the memory space and slow down. So if you use something like this, like just directly parsing the parameter whenever it's possible, I'm not saying it will be always possible, but whenever it is possible, you can use this technique just to avoid this document not get delivered by ID. But this is kind of like a no-brainer. It's just a beginning. But again, this approach of writing of using in the JavaScripts or in the HTML is not advisable at all. You should not keep anything here, like period. You should not have anything in this section. It should be as clean as this. Now, if it is as clean as this, then where my JavaScript, how the system knows where my JavaScript is or what I need to do? And for that, we have a different approach. What I'm going to do is we are going to keep this back again to where it was, okay? However it was. So I'm going to remove everything that we just added and it is back to wherever it was, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare this code from here. I'll take this code from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like in this line from JavaScript, again, as I said, searching for the button. Okay. Now, once the button is found, what I want to do? I want to add an event listener. Now we are talking, I guess. You must be asking, what is this add event listener? Add event listener is a method that is part of this button object that allows you to bind an event, a specific event, to a object. So if this button, if you want to add a click object, so this button click will trigger this on click handler. This is this method. Let's see if this works. Okay. And you see what? You know what? There's an error. Cannot read property add event listener to null. And this is where it shows. And the problem is it is complaining about something null. So this is saying this button is null. How can this button be null? Because it was the same code that we were running, right? Now, think once again. Data loaded, came to body, everything fine. This code was working, all of a sudden it started throwing error. What if, what is the reason? The reason is the script is part of the head, which gets executed before the body loads. So even before the body loads, the body of the page loads, it basically executes the JavaScript. And as the body is not loaded, this action button doesn't exist. That's why you're getting this error. Now, there are multiple ways of solving this one. Now, the common one, again, as I said, commons are the thing that you do in general or commonly may not be the right thing to do. But if I just do this, but there might be the simplest thing to do. So if I move this one to the end of this, let's see, voila, problem resolved. But is this what you want to do? As a tech lead, I would say no, never. I mean, never, ever do this. You're doing this means you are letting the control of your application let go from your hand to the browser. Now you are no longer designing and defining, because there could be something else here. Maybe some other script is being loaded even before this one. You know what? Let me just remove this one from here. Control S, just to be sure that I have only one copy of the scripts. And if I click this, yeah, as it is at the end of the body, so we are ensuring by the positioning the script tag at the end that it is working. But this is not at all the solution I want. I want my script to be right there. And I want to ensure everything, every component or my JavaScript runs only after this whole page is loaded properly. To ensure that, I have something called windows.onload. What does windows.onload do? Windows.onload ensures that anything that is within this function, any function that is being called as part of this windows.onload, only be executed after the whole DOM is loaded and subsequent items that like browser APIs and everything has been loaded completely, like the whole page is ready to go. Only after that, this function will be executed, or everything within this section will be executed. And as you can see, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to comment a few things just because I want to make sure that we just take one step at a time. So here you see that I have the same code, finding the button, okay, and then clicking the on-click handler. Now you must be thinking why I'm having this if and else, because I like safe programming and proper programming. I want to tell everybody one thing here. I was one of those people who never took JavaScript seriously. I have been coding for quite some time, and like a decade ago, like in 2005, 6, 7, JavaScript was not really considered as a pure programming thing. Java, .NET, C# were the things that we used to consider, or C++, C used to be the languages that we used to consider as serious programming languages. But as time progressed, right, JavaScript, Python, all the scripting things became more and more popular, and now they are equally important, equally serious. So guys, please put your efforts and thoughts towards JavaScript programming as well. Now, this is a standard way. I know you will be doing it for sure when you are doing it in C#, because when I am reviewing a code and I see a null reference error, I don't consider that as a mistake. I think that's a crime. As a developer, it is your sole responsibility to handle null references. If I see something as a null reference error, I'm not going to get soft on you, because I really don't care what you think, but there should not be any null references, because you can handle it. It's just sheer negligence that you are not handling this. So here, as you can see, this button, if the button is not loaded, like the error that we got last time, right? It was throwing because this button was null. So if it is not null, then only you try this. And if it is null, then something that basically differentiates a junior programmer, a new programmer, or an inexperienced programmer from enterprise programmer is how well you handle your errors. You're not writing your code because you'll be lifelong looking into this code, right? Somebody else is going to look into it, and that person may not have all the information. So it is your code that should be responsible to make sure that somebody, anybody looking into the code understands what is happening. So whenever you're writing this error, it is your responsibility to highlight the source and method, like where from, what is the source of this error? Because whenever somebody look into it, if they can find it, okay, this is coming from this location, it will be easy to debug. It will be easy to resolve. And if you don't do that in an enterprise scale application, there will be maybe 50 to 70 at least JS files, and those files will be cross-referencing each other. It will be a nightmare to figure out where from this error is populating. So it is your sole responsibility as an experienced developer to ensure that you highlight your errors to its source and what it causes it, if you can do that. Now here, I can say that, okay, the name of the function, this JavaScript file is clearly mentioned here, and the method is none, so it's just coming from windows.onload. So you can even mention that it is coming from, even though it's not a method, but it's coming from here. So anybody who wants to look into it, he just comes to this file and looks for this method and will be able to find it. Okay, so let me go back again with this change. See, the error is gone. And it is working as expected. So what happened? Windows.onload ensured that this code triggers only after, or this event triggers only after the page is loaded. This is what you want to do. This is the right way of doing it, not just moving the, moving that tag, script tag to the bottom. I have seen so many times people doing this, and I don't like it. And one of the reasons I'm doing this video, because I really want you all to adhere to these things, because this will make life of your tech leads or your architects much easier. And even for you, when next time when we'll be debugging, you'll receive a call from somebody that, okay, there's a bug in the system. You'll thank yourself that you did this. Now, if you are confused about this part, this is just something of shorthand of an anonymous function. So if you have a function that is not being called by somebody, anything else, which is something very, just done for only one activity to be performed, you can do something like this. It is just not, you can just, if this is like, okay, you know what, any function, and you remove this. Okay, pretty much. Is this all good? Yeah. So this is pretty much all about it. But instead of writing all this, because I don't really need all this, I'm not gonna call it anywhere else. You can just do like this, sorry, do like this, and it takes care of everything. It looks clean, everything is fine. And from here, what you did, you just click this on add event listener and clone this on click handler. Now, why we'll be using this, why I prefer this one? I prefer this one because your code has to have one of the basic principles of extensibility. And what is extensibility? Extensibility is, okay, something going on here. So extensibility is, you should be able to load your code, extend your code without breaking anything. Now say you have one requirement, right? I had one requirement initially to change the color of that div to red, correct? So if I click this, it should be red. Now I have another requirement. While I click this, I also want another event to trigger, which will change the color of the border as well, right? So what do? First of all, if you had like this on-click thing on a board or whatever, on-click, you had this one, right? On-click one. Even if you had this, you write something, it only allows you to provide one method, only one event handler, correct? Not cool. Now you can tell me, okay, you know what? I can have an event handler, and inside this, I'm gonna write another logic. So basically, anything else that use this event handler, right, gonna get your functionality as well. Do you really want that? No, right? Because maybe it is only for one place and somebody, some naive developer, some nice developer trusted you, and you betrayed their trust by just adding one functionality here, and they will get something unwanted, right? So how to do that? Now the simplest approach is just write another method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write another method here. You can see I'm just changing this color of this. This method is basically responsible for changing the color to blue. That's it. And then look at this. I wanted this to have this button click to have this feature, right? All I'm going to do is I'm going to add another event listener. And that event listener will be triggered on click. So once you do the on click of that button, it will not gonna only do this one, but it will also do this one. But it is sequential. First, it will gonna do this and then this. So let's put it into action. See, the color changed. Oh, my bad. I stopped this. So let me just do it once again so that you can see the debuggers. As you can see, the moment I did a refresh, Windows.onload got triggered. It set the document. Okay. Then it attached those two events to the button, but it didn't trigger it. If you notice, we just attached the buttons, but we didn't trigger it, correct? Now, when I click this, I first trigger on click handler, it basically changes the color to red, and then I'm gonna do the second trigger, the second one is gonna change the color to blue. So if anybody in the system is using any of your functionalities, this is like a modular programming, which is must for all of us. At least if you're a bit senior, you're a bit experienced, must follow this modular approach. Otherwise, your code will be a mess. It will be like a spaghetti, okay? And not the good ones, you know? Those will be like those overcooked spaghettis. Anything you want to do anything, it will be just breaking. Like once, if you try to just take one out, it will break something else. Please make your code modular, okay? So this is one of the best practices I would suggest to always follow whenever you are doing any events, triggering any events, follow this approach. You will thank me later, okay? So this is my first takeaway from this course. 1, declare, handle nulls. Handle your null values, your objects. And 2, always use event handlers like this way. Now, the problem with this one is if you're doing something where you still expect Internet Explorer 8 or 9 to support. If you're supporting Internet Explorer 8 or 9, this code might give you some trouble, okay? In that case, I would not support, I would not suggest this, but these days, I don't see, most of the people have moved to Chrome or Safari or Mozilla Firefox. But in any ways, if you're using any new browser, this is the way to go. This is the standard recommended way. Using onload, using event listener, add event listeners, and using this null check and providing proper error handling. This is my first entry point of writing basic acceptable level of code. Now, don't get confused that this is the end result. No, this is just the beginning. These are the very, very basics that you have to make sure whenever you are defining your events. So, what are the next steps? Please wait for next session to start when we'll be discussing about the next steps, maybe in next 30 seconds. But before that, let's review the whole code once again, okay? I have a CSS that basically is giving me some style sheets here. I have this JavaScript file, which basically is pointing by the HTML. I have a basic HTML structure. This is my basic HTML system. And we have gone through how we can add event listeners to the system, how we can debug a system, and how the system is working for us, okay? And how the events are triggered, we are triggering the events, okay? This is my first level. Now going to the second step on the events. Now you probably have noticed in my screen, I have this checkbox. It is not doing anything at this moment because I have this code commented. So I would like to uncomment this code and show you how the events are different, because this is a click event, right? It's a click event, but checkbox has a different event. So let's see how those events are different based on different controls. Okay, so back again to the code. This time, as we said, we have this checkbox that we'll be using. Now go back to this code here, and I have this part for checkbox. I'm gonna uncheck this part of code. Control slash unchecks it, and it's saying there's an error. Okay, you're expecting a bracket. Yes. So always Alt-Shift-F format, right? Let's see. What do you think it's gonna do? How it's gonna behave? Let's see. Okay. And I click this. F10. Nice. So let me remove this again. And gone. So let me see what actually this does, right? So the purpose of this one is to clear this selection, this red color here. If you click this, it's gonna get this color vanish. Okay, so it's basically pretty much not preventing action, but pretty much making it back again. So what's the difference? Let's get back again the code. Now you must be wondering, right? I mean, why this didn't throw error? Because it is not within this windows.load, right? Because the windows.load is basically ensuring this part of the code runs before. So this didn't throw any error. And this is what makes JavaScript so beautiful, this mystery around it. And as I see, exactly the error is here. The error is here. And that's what I was expecting. I was expecting this error to be here, because anything that's not within documented load will throw this error. So what I'm going to do is, first things first, let's take this and move it in this under this. Okay. Again, as you can see, we'll be doing the same thing. Null check for this checkbox as well. So every time you do something like this, always do a null check. And you know, I told about crime. If you don't do the null check, the bigger crime is if you just do this and don't do the else part, because then you are just making it absolutely impossible for anybody to not only understand there's an error, but to debug it at all. Because they will be completely clueless looking for like what the heck happened, because you are not even throwing an error, you're just ingesting the error, right? And you're just skipping, because if it is null, then you're not doing anything and the system doesn't throw any error. And somebody will be expecting this click to happen. He'll be completely clueless that what is going wrong. So pro tip, if you want to make somebody's life miserable, if you want to kill somebody or something like that, you probably want to do this. Just do an if, handle the error, handle the null like this, and don't do an else part. That person, I mean, and that will make your, I mean, anyone's life so miserable that it will be equivalent to committing a murder, I would say. Oh my God. And you know how you come to know about all this? Because in your life, sometime or another, when you're a tech lead, you face this kind of things. You do face this kind of things. And believe me, I definitely find a way out how to debug and find out what is the problem. And not only what is the problem, who did it. And once we find it out, it's not going to be pleasant for any of you. So as I make this change, everything looks good. And there is no error in the console. A clean console, beautiful console. That's what I like about the console. Oops. See, button is null. Clearly saying JavaScript function JS method Windows download. So either this one is null or this one is null. So let's see. If this one is null, then it is interesting. So what I'm going to do is F10, check. It is null. So why? Why is this null? We see it is not null, right? Because the checkbox has value. Because I'm checking button is null or not. Come on. This is checkbox and this is button. Come on. So let's do it again. I'm pretty sure this time it will be fine. Yes, this is fine this time. Everything looks good. Everything. Oops. It didn't look good, right? Right, because checkbox, it couldn't find where is the checkbox. Because checkbox object is no longer here. So, because it is part of this checkbox section within Windows download. So this is something called scope of a variable. Now you see this checkbox is a variable that is and its scope is bound to this, which ends here. As it ends here, it really have no idea, and this function has no idea, no way to know this checkbox, correct? So how we can do this? Okay. So this is source. Let me make this source. And when I'm calling it from here on checkbox check, right? I want to pass this. Can I? Let me see if I can pass this. This dot checked failed. Because this is probably not pointing to the right thing. So what I'm gonna do is instead of this, I'm gonna try again. Okay. So click this button. Nothing is happening. What is the problem? Because this is not triggering the event at all. Okay, because this syntax is not working. So I have to figure out a different way, okay? And how we can figure it out. Okay, so once you're basically going to this event, when you're going to this event listener, right? There is something you have to think about. So as we face this challenge, right? What I would do is I would move this variable checkbox to global variable. Now, initially, the scope of this variable was only this much. Sorry, this much. Because I was declaring this var here. If you remember, the previous code was like this. Now, as we need to use the same variable, right? Same variable somewhere down here. What we did is we use this as a global variable. Okay. And now as we have defined this as a global variable, what is happening? The value event listener is getting added to this one. And then the same variable is being used here where you're checking whether this property of checkbox.check is true or not. Now this is interesting. You remember as we were talking about something called the properties of an event, right? Now we will do a detailed session on internal bindings and details of event soon enough. Maybe right after this episode, next episode will be on that, how the internals of event works, and the custom events and all that. But for now, you just need to understand that, okay, if you do like this, you can also set the variable here and use that here. And that basically solves our problem here. And we move forward. Now, if you see, I click this. This is interesting. See, this is our target, which has this style, and we're basically setting this event value. And then the next one sets this. Now, if you click checkbox, you see, value is set back normal again. Now, interestingly, if you see, I have this something called checkbox.checked. What is this? Now, let me just evaluate this checkbox for you quickly. As you see, checkbox has this checkbox input type, event area, and all that. Dot. These are all different properties, okay, of the checkbox. Now it has this property called checked. Okay, if you say check, that means whenever you are basically doing this check mark, it validates whether it is checked or not. And if it is checked, you want to do something, you can do it. If you want to do something different, if it's not checked, you can do that as well. Now, interesting. Do you have a click? Yes. A checkbox also have a click method. Why didn't I use the click method? Because I really don't want to. I mean, check method is a bit gives you this ability, right, to understand when it is checked and not, more in line to the checkbox properties. Whereas click is a basic general click, so many times we do not use it. Okay, fine enough. So this is pretty much how, at least the basic things you should do while you're building your JavaScript application. Now, I'm pretty sure you might be having this confusion, right? The moment I declared this var checkbox. What if somebody in your team, or maybe some other team working on the same application, right, declared a same variable checkbox, and somehow during the whole iteration of your development phase, somebody referred that JavaScript along with this JavaScript file. You have a conflict. Same variable, variable with same name in two different places, and maybe that person has a different implementation, or he is setting some values even before these values are encountered. So your system, your whole code, even though it is working perfectly fine in your local, when you're doing it alone, the moment you're in an enterprise system where multiple people are working on the same code base, maybe large code base, this is not safe. This is not the best way of doing it. So how could you protect, prevent your code, your effort, so that others do not cause problem to your code or interfere with your code? And that is where the true proficiency lies. One of the things is handling the errors, making sure the nulls are checked, corner conditions are met, and then how to make sure the structure of your code is different. Like how to structure your code so that your code is separate from other people's code, right? So that somebody does something else doesn't interfere with your code base. That is an approach of modular JavaScript. These days, with the introduction of Node.js, modules and everything, it is becoming very obvious how you do it. But there are still old ways of handling this using some sort of a thing called namespacing. Now, JavaScript, there is no real namespacing possible in JavaScript, but still, you can make something like namespacing and something that will prevent your code scripts from other people's code. This was first initially used by Yahoo in 2002, 3 or something, long back in short. And till then, I mean, even today, I don't see many of, I honestly speaking, I hardly see anybody using that structure, but that is so good. So the next phase is actually going to the pro JavaScript code. And just look how different it looks. It looks like a masterpiece. It looks so beautiful. It looks so beautiful. Anyways, so let me change my JavaScript file from using this one. Let me take this one and add a new JavaScript file. Okay. So this is my pro JavaScript functions.js, and I'm gonna put it right here. And the feature that I like most points to the pro JavaScript file. As you can see, this code looks very different, much organized, clean, and everything. So what do? We define a variable called project name, and then we instantiate like this, so that it's like a, by default, every function, everything in JavaScript is an object, and we leverage this concept, this definition. For the beginners who are using it for the first time, this is pretty much saying, okay, if you have a project name, this is basically the project name. So you can have like a large project, if you're working from some customer or whatever is a project name, you can pretty much use that as a project name variable, which can work like your base, namespace. Like, so generally how the namespace works. Namespace works like, okay, a company name, right? A dot, say the vertical name of the business name, right? Business name dot module name or product name. I mean, whatever best suits your need, right? So here I'm just showing you the easiest way or the simplest way. So pretty much like the project name and the module name. So you can put whatever you want here. So this is very much like the project name, and the project name has modules inside it. So module 1 have different, module 2 will be different, and inside them you have these functions. Now these functions are literally like these event handlers. That is all it has. So you can, as I says, you can pretty much try this as well. Let me try it. Let me see if this works. Yes, it works. So this pretty much is nothing but this function, so event handler function. Now these are no longer like actual functions. You see, these are properties. Properties of what? The model name class. Are you feeling the flavor of the namespace? So if I have to do anything, if I do within this one, right, this pretty much protects everything from getting, impacted by outside changes. Now here, you see this one-click handler as well. So you can, just to make the code look even beautiful, even nicer, I can remove all this function and just replace them with this arrow function, because this is a shorthand and I really like to keep my code clean, because the less code you write, the less chance there will be errors. So the less words, the less, anything less is more. Less is more. So here, so we have the same function. I go back here. It has the onload, and looks like it is still pointing to my old JavaScript file. So I have to do a refresh. But even with the refresh, I don't know why it is still pointing to the old one. Yes, this is still pointing to the old one. So let me close this. Okay, let me close this. I have this one now. Oh, because it is still there. This is the thing. These are the things where you have to be really, really careful when you're using your, code anywhere. So now let me stop the live server. Live server is now offline. Let me go live again and see. And I have this. If I click, nothing happens. Perfect. That means I have error. Again, same problem. Event listener is null. Okay. That means I have to take care of this window.onload. Okay. What we did in window.onload. So we don't. This window.onload is outside everything here. Okay. So window.onload, you want to run this sample function. Okay. The sample function is pretty much doing, trying to load this on-click handler. And on-click handler 2. As you have noticed, the sample function needs to be very precisely defined within window.onload. Okay, so within window.onload, we're basically triggering the sample function, and the sample function then takes the whole thing out. This is beautiful because this is so neat. You have one entry point defined. From this one entry point, you are doing all other things, right? This is neat. Let's see. Voila, working so beautifully. But this is like so well managed. You can see, right? I mean, there's no way any other code can interact with this one because this works like a namespace. So anybody has a function or something, they are gonna have it differently here. Now, I have this check here. I made that crime that I didn't define the else part, the deadliest of all problem I told you, remember? I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna take this console.error and put it here. So looks beautiful. Looks so beautiful. I like this way of coding because as a tech lead or an architect, whenever you're looking into a code, if it has a proper structure, if it has alignment, it looks really beautiful. Now here I have this first thing done. Now remember the second thing that I had was this function, right? Checkbox check. So let me take this one up here and move it within. I want to move that here because I really want to do it like, and just see like how easy it is. Okay. That's it. It has moved to a it moved as a property. But be very sure about this commas. If you miss any of these commas, it's going to throw error. So you have it like a property. If you want to have it like a function, you can have it like a function as well. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that top part from here on load. So I'm going to check this part. Remember this onload, you have this part. I'm going to take this whole thing. Control C. Easy peasy. Super easy. Let's put it here. Checkbox is here. Everything is fine, nicely defined. By the way, where is my where, right? because that is what checkbox was referring to, and that is where I had to make sure that it is not written by somebody else. So I have this var here. Now this is a sample function. It's completely different, completely outside. It's completely outside this sample function. And this sample function is calling my event listeners, this on checkbox check, correct? So it has to be somewhere outside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it absolutely outside. But I'm going to name it differently. This is just another property. Okay. Now let's see what happens here. It throws error. On checkbox check is not defined. So this one is not defined here because this is outside, correct? This is here as a property. So on checkbox check doesn't exist to it. However, looks like it's happy now. If I declare click this, okay, this works as well. So everybody is happy. Just I have to modify this property name to this one because you have to remember one thing. This is all like a namespace. So this on checkbox check, this one is a property of this class. It's not a class technically, but you have to, if you're object free, or if you're aware also about the object-oriented programming, that is kind of an implementation. That is kind of a thought you can keep in mind. This is kind of like a namespace and a class definition, and this is the property, okay, checkbox check. So whenever you're trying to use that from outside, this tells you where to look for. So just imagine how beneficial it is. It can, this whole thing can be part of some other project, some other section. You don't really care because this clearly outlines where to look for the events. Okay. And also, as you have defined this property, the global property, there's very rare chance that somebody will override this value because this checkbox is part of this class, and this is and there is different multiple ways you can do this. You can put it as a property inside this as well, right? You can do that too, but in both ways, if I would like to move this on top maybe. So yeah, oh yeah, that's all pretty much similar things. So this is when you code like this is like a code like a pro. This is when you're coding like a professional who is building an enterprise grade solution. Not only a solution, you're building a whole library. So this is simple, easy, maintainable, manageable, and whatnot. Everything is well defined, looks good, it's easy to debug, it's easy to maintain. So I hope you got some good understanding about how to do, how to handle events, how to deal with events, how to build events in JavaScript in a way that it will be manageable and it will be compatible for an enterprise application. Any questions, any doubts, please feel free to provide in the comments. I will try to provide clarifications because I know this would be a bit daunting because this is like my 12 years. I have been doing programming for 12 years, and maybe things are very straightforward to me, but that may not look so straightforward to you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put a comment in the below in the comment section. I will try to clarify to my best. Okay, thank you, and let me know if you. I mean, also in the comments, you feel free to let me know if you get benefited from this approaches. Take care. Bye.